Firefighting is as old as civilization, basically.
What does somebody have to do to be a firefighter?
It's about 200 to 250 hours of schooling. You're walking around in smoke and fire, and you're not even wearing any of your equipment or anything like that.
Right.
And it gives people kind of a false sense of what we're able to actually do. And so sometimes that's a little frustrating, you know. What happens is when smoke cools off too quickly, it stays low.
Okay.
All right. And whatever weather patterns we were having at that moment in time, the smoke was hanging low and traveling a great distance. And obviously there were very large fires. So
Right.
you have those combination of those things. And so...
Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome back to the Halak Show. We're in season 3 now. I couldn't take enough break now in between. You must have heard a saying, not all superheroes come with a cape. My today's guest is on those lines. Season 3, fresh season. I hope you enjoyed the past 2. If you haven't, please go back and check it out. There are different playlists. You can try and enjoy the experience that we have scheduled for you. Now we're kicking off with a very, very big note. Today I have a guest who is one of the New Jersey's finest. I have a chief Eric. He has been into firefighting. We're going to talk a lot about that. We'll also have some fun. Let's do some myth busting. You know, we know to run away from fire, but how much do we actually know how to run away from fire? We'll talk about his experience serving in firefighting, his dynamics with his team. We'll try to talk a little bit about technology, how it has changed the face of firefighting, right? And also, I know a little bit, but for us to know, firefighting is not just only when they're trying to fight the fire, right? They do a lot. And I'm very fortunate, very grateful. So, Chief Eric, please welcome to my podcast.
good evening. Thank you for having me.
And thank you so much for doing this.
No problem.
I was lucky in this instance. I was talking to you off the camera, right? I told Shivani to try and see if we can invite a chief, and luckily we were able to directly meet you.
Yep, you ran right into me.
Absolutely. So I hope I did justice when I was introducing you, but I want to talk a little bit about your life first, right? The podcast is about like learning about people and talking about their journey, and then in the process we try to uncover what you do, how we can better educate people
Okay.
on various different topics. So, can you start with you? Like, what got you into firefighting?
When I was a little boy, I was fascinated with fire trucks and everything to do with the fire service, basically, from a childhood perspective. And it continued up until my teenage years. And then when I was old enough to join the fire department, I did as a volunteer firefighter, as a junior firefighter. And I've been doing that since 1997. So
let me ask you one question. Did your family or anybody from your family were in firefighting or in public service?
none of my direct family, actually. I do have some family members who are in police. I have some family I actually found like a great uncle from like 120 years ago. I found a picture, and he was actually a fire chief.
Oh, wow.
From my family. I'm Latvian, so we're originally from Latvia. We immigrated over here, and so it's from 120 years ago, however old that picture is.
Wow.
It's in the family, but none of my direct relatives or current relatives are in the fire service. So no.
120 years. Can we talk a little bit about history of firefighting? Your understanding about where does this firefighting come from?
Well, I mean,
Just this firefighting.
Firefighting is as old as civilization, basically. It started off with bucket brigades, and now we're into advanced computers and electronics and drones and everything else.
Okay.
So, like I said, firefighting started for me in 1997, and I've been continuing ever since then. It's been a big part of my life.
So is firefighting? What does somebody have to do to be a firefighter?
So,
especially in our area, New Jersey.
So to become a firefighter here in the state of New Jersey, now every state is very different.
Okay.
But here in New Jersey, it's about 200 to 250 hours of schooling. Every county in New Jersey has a county fire academy.
Okay.
And you go to school. Essentially, it's like college, right? It's typically like a college semester.
Okay.
You go to school, you do a lot of classroom stuff, and then on top of the classroom stuff, they also have an outside drill area where you do all the actual firefighting, you do all the actual hands-on training, and when you're done, you have to take exams for both physical and mental exams
Okay.
and pass everything. And then you can become state certified as a firefighter. And actually, they've made the certification now a national certification so that somebody here from New Jersey can go to Tennessee or California or whatever it is and be a certified firefighter.
Gotcha. So you are a chief, which means you are now a leader. So you're not just responsible for others' life, but also your team relies on you, right? Or you guide the team in trying to go through the process. How is your dynamics with your team?
So firefighting is very much a group activity. And yes, my job is to lead the team, but we're only as strong as our weakest link, basically. And so I kind of think of us as like a chain, and every piece of the chain has to work and link together and make the job efficient and make sure that we complete our job and make sure everybody goes home safely at the end of the day.
Right.
And we do what we need to do as far as saving property, saving lives, all that kind of stuff. So
right now, if you get a call, are you right now completely off duty? So there's somebody else right now in your spot?
yeah, so I let one of the neighboring departments know that I'm going to be out of the area for a while until we're completed here.
Okay.
And my department, my station right now is at the County Fire Academy doing some training.
Okay.
So a neighboring station has taken over for us, basically, what we call a coverage or standby.
Gotcha. So firefighters are actually the first responders?
Yeah.
So there are also in EMT, also there are first responders. So every department has a first responder?
So firefighters, EMT, police officers are all considered first responders.
Okay. All right. I didn't know that. I always thought that, there are departments within every, and there are people in every department who form a group of the first responders, and then collaboratively they all respond to the situation first, right? So now I've seen in movies, I'm going to talk a lot about this because I also wanted to get your take. How do you see the movies when they are around firefighters going in and trying to, save? But my question is like, there is this hustle of when you approach a scene or a situation, you take over. You don't step on each other. How does firefighting or you guys coordinate this?
So I like to say firefighting is kind of like organized chaos, basically, because we're always trying to manage a hectic or major situation. Typically, people aren't calling us for it's their worst day of their life potentially,
right,
depending on what type of emergency it is, and so managing the number of resources that come in if it's a serious incident, and making sure the people are going where they need to go. Making sure people are doing the jobs that need to be done and everything. It's can get kind of hectic and kind of overwhelming at different points. So learning how to manage that is sometimes very difficult. But
I could imagine this is a little bit of a sensitive topic, but I don't know if you can talk. But I don't know if you're comfortable to talk about this. About when 9/11 happened, right? There were New York City is literally every firefighting unit would have been. I would have to respond. This was such a huge deal, right? Was New Jersey also asked to participate and help with the rescue and everything?
Yes. So during 9/11, a lot of the surrounding states to New York sent a lot of firefighting and emergency medical and police resources. So it wasn't just firefighters. It was construction people. It was engineers. Anybody you can think of that could potentially be used in that scenario. But they utilized people from even across the country, specialty units, and people who had experience with, say, collapse or engineering or whatever. Right. So, but yeah, New Jersey was heavily involved, especially northern New Jersey. because obviously their closeness, proximity to New York
Yeah.
City. So
Right. So how well are we prepared after something like this? Have you seen any changes within like just the firefighting in general? Like how have we adapted? 'Cause that was something that should never happen, and it happened. Are we now much more better prepared to respond to something like that? Or,
so I
or can you be prepared in that
So I don't
situation?
know if you can really be prepared for something like that, truly prepared.
Right.
But I think nationally, because of 9/11, we have become better at managing those types of incidents, and we've trained for those types of incidents. Prior to 9/11, we nobody could fathom something
Right. Something
of
so
something
so
that
devastating.
magnitude
Yeah.
happening.
Right.
And so, as a emergency services as a whole, I would say, not just fire department, but we've begun training in mass incidents, and obviously, with the passage of time, the amount of training that is required to become a first responder and maintain your certifications as a first responder continues to go up. So I think overall we're better prepared now than we were on 9/11 to face those types of incidents should they occur again. Hopefully they don't.
They don't. Yeah. Okay. And that's something like I think you very well said. You know that nobody can prepare for something like that, and that should never happen in the world in the first place. But then are always people who are not with a good mind try to do all that. So uh, I'll talk to you about a little bit about my experience. So I told you again off camera that I briefly was in my college. I was part of the EMT team
Hmm.
very briefly. I did go through the CPR training and all of that. Not as extensive. My biggest phobia was first of all when I came from India, and this was when I was new here. Even though I'm very much familiar with English as a language. My biggest concern always was the walkie, and when somebody would say code or something that I would not understand, and if I have to respond, which I had to 2 or 3 times,
Okay.
that was my biggest phobia. Did you have any, or do you see like youngsters or anyone new to fire? They have any such phobias when they join?
Um, I guess there's kind of a shift in I guess it's our culture overall in the United States. We're not as I think over the last my lifetime, certainly growing up, in my parents and then my grandparents' lifetime, we were more of our workforce was more of a blue collar workforce, meaning we worked more with our hands and stuff like that. And so the transition to being a firefighter, which is obviously a physical job, working with your hands and stuff like that, was more natural. And I feel like we've transitioned to everybody goes to college now. There's a lot of jobs in the workforce that are now white collar jobs where people don't work with power tools or do any physical labor anymore. And so we're seeing a transition in the fire service to the youth that are coming into the fire service. They don't have any exposure to trades or power tools or
Right,
any of the hands-on stuff that
the
we used to
physical
see.
part.
Yeah, the physical part
Right.
that we used to see, even 20, 30 years ago.
Yes.
But certainly 50, 60 years ago, I mean, people fix their own cars, people change their own
Right.
oil. Now you just drive to the dealership and let them do it type deal. And so that has impacted us a little bit.
Do you, when you are, again, you're a chief, so I'm going to go back to a little bit. When you have a youngster or whenever you have a new person, rookie, who comes into your team, how do you let them get a feel of it? Do you push them? So you have to take it. Do you normally like how do you have like any process of how you get them exposed or to such real how things can become real so quick?
No, so we do have a process. We try to bring our firefighters in, start them off slowly, introduce them to everybody at the firehouse, um, show them all the equipment and everything like that. And we have a couple of mentors, essentially senior firefighters who are more experienced, who are have a lot more training and things of that nature. We'll kind of go through things with them and show them the proper way to do stuff.
Awesome. How has technology we touched upon, I was going to talk about like physical part of firefighting. How do you have to train? Do you have to keep yourself fit? Because it's a lot to do with internal as well, right? Where you breathe in so much carbon dioxide or whatever when you're trying to actually do something. But do you physically have to actually keep yourself really, really fit? in those situations, and does it really help?
It certainly helps. It certainly helps. Firefighting is a very dangerous job. It's a very physical job. Um, it's physically demanding.
Right.
Being in better shape certainly is helpful. And obviously, a large percentage of the firefighters that die in the country every year is from cardiac related events during firefighting. So obviously, you want to try to avoid that as well.
Right.
So
What do you guys do? Because when you go through a very tough day at work, um, is there like any mentally it takes a toll on you as well, because you're seeing something which you would not want to see, or you're trying to fight something in such a stress situation. How do you keep yourself mentally in check, like where you are relaxed, calm, and you are ready to go again?
So the other firefighters, we kind of sit around the firehouse and we discuss our experiences. We kind of call it the like the kitchen table talk,
Okay.
and that is kind of how we relieve stress. Firefighters overall have a very weird sense of humor. I will say that. But we like to play jokes on each other. We have antics and things of that nature. That maybe sometimes outside individuals who are not involved with the fire service don't understand.
Right.
But that is a method for us to kind of relieve that stress of seeing bad things and seeing the kind of things that we see. So that's kind of like a blow off steam and an outlet for us to maybe get rid of some of that pent up frustration and stuff like that. So
Right.
sometimes outside people don't understand that that's kind of like our outlet and our out. You
Yeah.
know.
I feel every department or every place has such things like inner jokes,
Mhm.
inside jokes. Where I had one of our guests was she did a boot camp with U.S. Navy, so she's kind of a U.S. Navy officer, and then she was telling us about some insider jokes where I was to call her, what the civilian like me would not understand, and she was like, yeah, we are full of it. We that's when you are stuck into situations, they look to humor for de-stressing or make the situation lighter, so that they can get distracted, or if they have to distract any civilian, they use that sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. So, like I said, our humor can sometimes be very dark. Our jokes can sometimes be to somebody who's outside, maybe like, "Oh man, that's not funny," but we take it all in good stride. And like I
Right.
said, it's very similar to the military, where you're relieving that stress and
Right.
because depending on what you see, you can see the worst of the worst things,
Right.
and instead of having to go to needing mental health care or something like that of that
Right.
nature, this is our kind of our outlet that helps people.
No,
So
absolutely. What does courage mean to you?
um courage to me,
Firefighting requires a lot of courage.
see, I don't feel like it does. I guess it's natural to me. It feels more like a job, just like you just do it. um Firefighters don't think of ourselves as courageous. We think of it as it's a just a job, and we're doing our job, and maybe a byproduct of doing that job is showing courage, but we don't think of it in that regard. We don't think, well, at least most of the firefighters that I know, we don't think of ourselves as heroes. We don't think of ourselves as courageous.
Right.
We're doing our jobs, and it's what we're meant to do.
Is it like the wiring that happens when you choose to do something? It's dangerous, right? You know that and it's never going to happen, but it could be the last day when you don't know when you're jumping into it, and you are not having that double mind. You are going for it. To me, when I'm looking from outside, that is courage. Like you don't think of yourself first. You'll put yourself in harm's way.
Yeah,
That's
I
why
mean,
my definition to you was, what does courage mean to you?
the courage, the ability to overcome your fears, I would say, is what I would say courage is.
In your illustrious years of that you have spent with firefighting, do you recall any of the toughest days that you have ever faced?
So in my career, unfortunately, I've had the misfortune of being involved in obviously quite a few fires and car accidents and things of that nature. The things that bother me the most are typically children, small children. I've had, unfortunately, fatal accidents involving small children. I've had fatal fires involving small children. So those are the ones you kind of stick with you and remember. Obviously, if anybody loses their life, it's a horrible situation. But I would say, for me personally, the smaller children is really kind of hits home a little bit.
Right.
And then you just try to move past it as you. For me personally, if I don't know the individual, it doesn't bother me as much. It's kind of one of those things. I don't know if it's because I'm maybe anesthetized to it a little bit.
Right.
I've experienced it so much in my time.
Right.
I'm going on almost 28 years now that I've seen it so much, and it's. I don't want to say it doesn't bother me because I don't want to feel like I'm robotic, but it's
Right.
when you do something so long, it's kind of like a doctor or a nurse in a hospital.
Right.
They've seen a lot.
They can see past that, and that's why I mentioned the word wiring. That maybe you have now wired in such a way that you empathize, sympathize, but then you move on, and then you just like go for the next day. Just go
you're
back
off
in.
to the next emergency and whatever it is, and then.
Right.
Some people take it harder than others. Obviously, every firefighter is different. One might take a certain type of call much harder and might need a little bit of help afterwards with it. And then some guys are just okay with it and can move on. It just depends on the individual.
Right. All right. Let's talk a little bit on a lighter note. I was talking about movies, right? I get fascinated, and I'm always in awe when I see like a good firefighting movie or like a good, in general, a good movie, right? Do you have a good go-to movie that you really enjoy? Any genre, funny or
any genre.
Just your go-to movie, like you just like just.
I love a lot. I love movies so much. Basically, I'm a big movie fan. I go to the movies fairly often.
Okay.
It's so hard for me to pick out like one that it's like, this is my favorite. Because then I think I'll tell you like, oh, this is my favorite, and then I'll think of something else and be like, oh no, I like this one better.
Do you like superhero movies? Let's start with that.
Not really.
Oh, really? Okay.
No.
Do you? What theater do you normally go to? Regal,
or
I go there all the time.
Yeah.
I'm big into movies too, so I normally don't want to miss any movies. Now that I have kids, they're young, so then I've taken a step back for a few years. I'm waiting for them to turn to an age where I can
take them
and have that. I have two boys, so it could be like a good fun bonding exercise and stuff like that, right? So the movies. Let's go back to the movies.
Yeah.
Does it bother you certain times when you see a certain movie, like you start nitpicking? Nah, this is not. I don't think that is way too much film, like cinema. It doesn't work that way.
Well, specifically with firefighter movies, a lot of firefighter movies are not 100% authentic.
Okay.
They make us seem invincible, essentially. They make us seem like you can, you're walking around in smoke and fire and you're not even wearing any of your equipment or anything like that.
Right.
And it gives people kind of a false sense of what we're able to actually do. And so sometimes that's a little frustrating, Okay. Same thing with the TV shows that are all about emergency services.
Right.
They kind of portray us as almost the invincible, godlike.
Right.
And then, you go to an actual fire and people are like, well, I saw that movie yesterday and you guys did whatever. You walked through the flames. And it's like, well, no, we can't actually do that.
Right.
Yeah,
they take cinema liberty. They try to project you in the best way they feel. But there are nowadays there are like directors and things who actually on board like a firefighter. Then they can tell them the limitations. Okay, yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is way
and
too
things for cinema, obviously, like wearing the air pack and the air mask. They usually, a lot of times, they'll leave that off because they want to get the best shot of the actor's face, obviously, and that kind of thing. So, but that would never happen in real life.
Right.
Inside a burning building.
Right.
With smoke and fire, you would be wearing all of your equipment and everything. You would never take any of your stuff off.
Right.
A
question around that. When there's a fire, right? I have heard this, and I have heard about this different gases that you can inhale. Fire might not kill you, but the gases can have a long-lasting impact on your body, right? In movies they do show, and I think that might be wrong, but when you put the wet cloth on your face, that's the only best course of action. If there is nothing like that available, what can someone do?
So
they're stuck.
Unfortunately, even a wet cloth might help with well, first let's start off with smoke. Smoke is essentially unburned fuel. Okay. So everything that we have is a fuel, and when it doesn't burn completely, it turns into smoke. Okay. All of our objects inside our house, our furniture, our clothing, everything, all things of that nature. So wearing a wet cloth or sitting in a bathtub might help you from the thicker smoke particles, but the gases that are in smoke, that's not going to get filtered out by a wet washcloth.
Okay.
So you're still breathing the dangerous gases that are produced by the fire.
Wow.
If you're happen to be unlucky enough to be caught inside a residence that's actually on fire.
Gotcha.
So things like carbon monoxide, hydrogen cyanide, those things that can kill you.
Okay.
In certain quantities, you're not going to be able to filter those out with a wet washcloth or, by sticking your face next to the floor. It'll help.
Okay.
Certainly, smoke rises, obviously. You wouldn't want to stand up and be in the thickest part of the smoke, but even getting low 100% of the time, obviously it's factor dependent, how much smoke is there, how big is the fire, all that kind of stuff. But if the house is kind of filled with smoke,
right,
and there's a pretty big raging fire at this point, you're basically just filtering out the thicker, chunky particles of the smoke,
right,
and all of the bad gases and stuff you're just going to inhale.
Oh, gotcha.
So if oxygen can go through the washcloth,
then even
so can carbon monoxide, so can hydrogen cyanide, so can all those things that are going to kill you and are bad for you.
Awesome, that's great to know. Have you seen this? Have you seen this show, The Office?
I have not religiously though, but I've seen certain episodes.
So in one of the episodes, Dwight he burns the handle from inside because he wants to train the office. It's comedy. No one should do that. It's not allowed. But he tries to burn the handles from the doors from inside, and he locks the doors from outside so that nobody. He puts the stopper so nobody can pull the door and open it.
Yeah.
And he tells them that the handles are hot. That means there could be fire on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true?
That is true.
That's how you know that you don't open the door?
Yeah, so before you open a door, if you're involved in a house fire, before you open a door, you should feel the door with the back of your hand to make sure that it's, the reason you use the back of your hand is because all the nerves and stuff on the back of your hand are closer to the top of your hand. Okay. So when you put when you'll feel the heat sooner.
Oh,
so
wow.
if you go like this, you might actually touch the door for extra long and you'll get burned more.
Okay.
Whereas the nerves on the back of your hand are closer towards the top of your skin, and they will instantly tell your brain, hey, that's hot, pull away type deal. So that's the reason you use your back of your hand as opposed to the front of your hand.
Okay.
But yeah, you would want to.
So you touch the door handle.
You would touch the door handle or feel the door.
Okay.
Okay. And if the door's hot, there's probably a good chance that there's fire on the other side.
Okay. And then you should not open that. Just
should not open
Wait
that.
for someone to come to you.
Correct, because there's a lot of studies done that in the fire service that if you close the doors in your residence, your chances of survival, obviously the fire has to start on outside of the door and you're inside a protected room,
right?
But your chances of survival are significantly higher if you're in a room that has a closed door and the fire is on the other side.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so your best bet, if you can't. Obviously, you want to get yourself out if at all possible.
Right.
But if you are trapped in a residence and you're not able to self-extricate yourself from the home,
right,
the best thing to do would be to find a room that has a door between you and the fire and wait for the fire department to come get you.
Okay, awesome. All right. Now a question. Firefighting goes back ages, right? Like it's been going on for ages. Is there like a process where there is an archival where there is where you can document all these situations and the reports, and then you use to generate like the future studies and education and stuff like that? Does it happen that way?
Yes, but this kind of stuff has this technology stuff that where we are generating paperwork and everything like that has only been around for the last, 40, 50 years. I mean, they've been keeping statistics, but it's like, it's kind of like the weather, right? They only know they've only been keeping track of the weather for the last, 80, 100 years, whatever it is.
Right.
Ever since we've gotten computers and archival data and stuff like that. So, but they do, keep track of the number of fires, the number of calls, and that's become significant certainly in the last 20 years, whatever. People are using the statistics to get funding, to the federal government to give out grants and that kind of thing.
Right. Okay. What is more difficult, according to you, a wooden house catching fire or a brick house? Like if you had to go inside a house and get somebody out, do you find it? You must be finding a huge difference, right, between the two.
Yeah. So unfortunately, the new construction is built extremely strong, but it is not designed to burn and catch on fire. So the newer construction houses, as far as firefighting goes, are actually constructed worse from a firefighter's perspective.
Oh, so they are not good.
They are not good. No, the materials in them are, when put under fire, they collapse more frequently. They burn at a more rapid rate. And so we're kind of having, certainly the last 40 years or so, where the fire service is transitioning from legacy construction, where the houses were brick or they were much heavier timber, to the new lighter weight construction. And that new construction, is better for snow load, is better for maybe wind. And if you were to experience a hurricane or a tornado, that new construction might hold up better to those types of effects, but they're weaker when it comes to actual, when they're impinged by fire. Okay. And so the newer construction is actually worse for firefighters. Okay.
See, I would think that the brick would be much stronger overall. But
a brick is better for firefighters, but also keeps heat in. So the issue we're having now is on top of that new construction that is lighter weight, cheaper to build, but fails quicker when it's impinged by fire. We are using products in our home that are more synthetic and made of...
they're inflammable?
Yeah, they're a lot more flammable, the products that we're using. Everything that is made of hydrocarbons and plastics. And so 50, 60, 100 years ago, everything in your house was wood, essentially. Okay. And so wood, while it does burn, burns at a much slower rate.
Okay.
All right. And then when you start using synthetics and polyurethanes and things that are hydrocarbons and plastics, they burn at a much higher rate, and it creates worse smoke, more deadly smoke. Okay. And on top of that, it also creates higher heat.
Okay.
And it creates quicker, the ability for the fire to quickly get up to much higher temperatures.
So it's much more damaging, much more quicker as compared to like the older houses.
Yes. So you will see that typically, because we have in the modern fire service, we've pushed a lot of the warning devices, fire alarms, sprinklers, smoke detection systems, all those things over because of electronics and advancements over the years.
Right.
But we have typically a lot more serious fires when we do have a fire.
Okay.
Because of all of the stuff that we keep in our house now, this stuff is burning much faster. It's burning at a higher rate, and it's causing the weaker materials that we're putting in our houses that are not good with fire to collapse and to have issues sooner than would have legacy construction.
Gotcha. Now I've seen again this in YouTube videos played times, like the response time. Like so somebody, when you get a call or when you get called in, do we have a standard here in Jersey that within this much amount of time the firefighters will be there to you? Like latest?
Yeah, so typically a paid or a paid department or a partial paid department, you would probably be in the 6 to 7 minute range. Certainly 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 4 minutes is possible, depending on how far away from the firehouse you are.
Traffic, time of the day. All
yeah,
that.
Exactly. And then 12
6
minutes.
to 7 minutes is the... You said there's a paid and then there is a state?
Then you have all volunteer. So that's kind of... I know you said you wanted to talk about myths of the fire service.
Yeah, we will talk about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to talk about that too. So, all right, let's start with myth busting for a bit.
Okay.
I have a few myths. and I'm going to ask you. You let me know if it's true or it's false, right? So I did not know this. You kind of bursted in the first go, and I'm surprised that there are two different ones. There's volunteering fire, and then there's paid.
Yes.
So what's the difference
A-
between the two?
A paycheck.
Okay, so to be a firefighter, you get paid, and you can volunteer to become a firefighter, where you just do it for volunteering.
Yes.
So how are then, if it is paid, doesn't it mean that they'll be educated better in the firefighting?
So the academy, I can't speak to every state because I'm obviously
Specific to
I'm
Jersey.
only familiar with here with New Jersey, but
Yes.
the academy here in New Jersey is the same academy whether you're volunteer or paid.
Okay.
So you have to go through the same training whether you're volunteer or paid.
Okay.
And then your ongoing training, that's department specific. So you have some volunteer departments that are better trained than the paid departments,
Okay.
and you have paid departments that are way better trained than volunteer departments. It just depends.
Okay.
But that is a big myth in the country wide, essentially. But most people assume that most of the firefighters are paid,
Okay.
and that's actually not true.
Okay.
Most firefighters in the United States are actually volunteer.
Ooh, okay.
All right. So a
All right.
majority of the firefighters in the United States are actually volunteer. And obviously, with the areas that get built up, as they get built up, and you start to have cities and more suburbia, the volume of calls becomes too much for volunteer firefighters to handle.
Right.
And so you have typically start going to a paid department or a combination department of some paid personnel and some volunteer personnel.
Okay. Second myth: firefighter is never off duty. You can be called at any time.
So again, it depends on whether you're volunteer or paid. If you typically, it doesn't really matter because you can be called at any time, because if there's a large enough incident,
Okay.
even in a paid service, they can recall you. And now obviously you can choose not to answer your phone. It's not like they're going to, drop somebody at your house and say, you must come into work. But you're never truly off duty because you can be called at any time.
Okay.
Even if you're paid full time as opposed to a volunteer. So volunteers are on call 24/7, but they all have jobs as well.
Okay.
So they're obviously missing certain times of the day. But even paid personnel, if a large enough incident comes in and you're off shift, they might recall you.
Okay.
And say, hey, we have a big fire over here. We need people to come in.
Right.
So you're never 100% off duty, but certainly, obviously, you're off duty when you're, away on vacation or whatever.
All right. I must be 16 to become a firefighter or volunteer to become a firefighter.
So at 16 here in the state of New Jersey, you can become a volunteer firefighter. You're considered a junior firefighter. Okay. You can do a lot of the jobs that a firefighter would do, but you cannot go into burning buildings and do the more dangerous jobs until you become 18.
Okay. If I do not pass my physical exam, I can still be in fire department.
If you fail your physical exam, you cannot be in the fire department, whether it's volunteer or paid.
So, can you talk about this a little bit? So, there has to be some at least like technical or back end job that goes into building the firefighters, right? Or every firefighter is expected to be like on the scene. Like what happens? Who handles the station in the back? The information.
Obviously, there's always times where maybe like an individual got hurt on the job or something like that, and maybe they're on like light duty or something like that. But every person who is a certified firefighter and working as a firefighter, whether it be paid or volunteer, okay, is expected to be able to perform the job.
Okay.
Obviously, you could have like in a volunteer fire service, you could have like associate members who aren't firefighters who maybe do menial tasks around the firehouse or help the firefighters with that task. It's just a different association or classification of membership.
Okay.
At that point. But if you join the firehouse as a firefighter, in order to be a firefighter, you have to pass your physical exam.
Gotcha. The next one, I just thought while you were saying this, and I've always been curious about this. Sand is better than water to stop fire.
I guess it's It's one of those things.
I've seen places, and especially in India, there are certain places where they have buckets full of like sand. I mean, also there's water, but there's also sand. I don't know what sand does.
So you can do both. So the fire, in order for you to have a fire, you have to have what we call the fire triangle. Okay.
Okay.
Which is you need oxygen,
Okay.
you need heat, and you need some type of fuel. Okay.
Right.
So you need to put those three things together. Okay. In the appropriate quantities in order to have a fire. When you use water, or when you're extinguishing a fire, you must remove one of those three things I just mentioned. Okay. So water takes away the heat.
Right.
Okay. When you're putting sand on a fire, you're taking away the oxygen. You're smothering the fire.
Okay.
So if you can use any method you want of firefighting.
Okay.
As long as you remove one of those three pieces of that triangle. And that's heat, oxygen, and a fuel.
Okay. And that will help with the...
That puts the fire out. If you remove any one of those three things,
Okay.
if you only have heat and oxygen, but there's no fuel, there's nothing to burn.
Okay.
Okay. If there's no oxygen, you can't start a fire. It's kind of funny because we talk about myths and things of that nature.
Right.
There's no oxygen in, say, space.
Right.
Okay. So like we watch these sci-fi movies and there's ships that are blowing up and they have fires and stuff like that.
Yes.
That's not possible.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
You need oxygen for fires.
Right.
So
Even in the movie Martian, they said, have you seen the movie Martian?
yeah.
And then he said that the NASA doesn't allow flammable objects. I don't know if Mars atmosphere has a little bit of oxygen. I don't know what that catches fire, but
well, inside the shuttle, obviously, or the spaceship is going to be oxygen because you were breathing.
you're using.
So you don't want a fire because
Right.
obviously you can't go outside. So
Right.
it's very, very bad, obviously.
Right. No. How would you rank? Martian was pretty good, right, in terms of covering scientific facts and reality.
Yeah.
When it comes to like how can you execute going to Mars and what happens.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of
what's
movies.
the most realistic or closest to the reality? Have you thought about any such movie when it comes to like firefighting or for anything in general, like such things?
Oh geez, the firefighting. I mean, Ladder 49 for firefighting is closer than most.
Or is it Ladder 49? You said.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna actually now that I've heard so much from you, I'm gonna now try to watch it with a more analytical view.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's perfect. Obviously,
of course.
They always take liberties to sensationalize everything.
Yeah.
It's closer, definitely closer to the real thing.
Okay. No, see, like this is good. Like it's just sort of enlightenment of trying to learn about it, right? One more segment. Let's talk about a little bit about that. I told you about AI, like technology, and then what you used to do 50 years ago. Is technology more assisting in firefighting as well? Like, are you seeing anything coming in like robotics and stuff?
Yeah. So technology over the last 40 or 50 years has been obviously leaps and bounds in our daily lives, and it's significantly impacted the fire service as well. We're using, I mean, as far as AI and robotics, obviously they're the future right now. And I don't know when it's going to come about, but at some point we might be using robots to go into fires and fight fires at some point.
Like maneuver them and try to guide them to go in and
and it'll kind of become like using drones instead of people, so that you don't hurt people essentially.
Right.
Or robots take the place of people in certainly high risk jobs or whatever.
Right.
I'm sure I could see that happening, but I don't think that's anything that's going to be happening anytime soon.
Right.
Certainly, not before I retire or my lifetime, but
a few more years. You're still young. You have a lot of time to go. But
there's been a lot of advances, even in just not just electronics. I mean, like the materials, like our turnout gear and the clothing we wear is totally different from what it was.
Has it become lightweight?
It's lighter weight, more breathable.
Okay.
It's kind of weird because it's good in the fact that the protection we get is significantly better than what our fathers had and our grandfathers had.
Right.
It's some people, a lot of especially older school firefighters, think that the equipment has gotten so good that we are almost insulated too much
Okay.
from the fire. And sometimes we don't realize we're getting ourselves into trouble until it's too late.
Okay.
So some people feel like that's a thing in the fire service that, 50 years ago, the gear wasn't as good. So they would go up to the fire and they would go, oh man, it's really hot in here.
Right.
We need to get out of here.
Right.
And now we're at the point where the equipment is getting so good
You don't realize.
we're like, oh my God, it's getting hot in here, but it's too late. We've gone too deep. We're in too deep. It's too late to save ourselves essentially sometimes.
Gotcha. So everything comes with like its own caution.
We're getting less burns and injuries and that kind of stuff because we have much better equipment, but then we're digging our own graves sometimes because we're getting ourselves into situations that we would have never gotten ourselves into 50 years ago.
Right, exactly. How about those planes? So like LA fires and fires in California of that magnitude when there's such a huge scale, right? Like what goes into it when that's now forest fire is everything for firefighters because they're the only people who can solve it, right? When such kind of a fire happens.
So the thing with forest fires is you're fighting Mother Nature. And it's a very difficult situation when you're fighting Mother Nature at that point. And there are some times, and this happens even in suburbia and in the cities where we have fires and there's just nothing we can do. We're in over our heads. Like I said, we're not gods. We're not able to walk through flames. We're not able to do that stuff.
Right.
And so sometimes you just kind of throw your hands up in the air and say, there's not, we're at the mercy of Mother Nature and God like everybody else,
Right.
Wildfires have a tendency to do that a lot more than fires in the cities and stuff like that because we can't control. There's things we can do to limit fuel load and stuff like that, but we can't control like the weather.
Right.
The weather impacts
the wind
wildfires.
Takes everything.
Yeah, there's nothing.
It makes it more dangerous.
And obviously it makes it more dangerous in suburbia and in the city too. A wind can impact the fire, but to a lesser extent,
right,
those types of fires are impacted by certain things that are just beyond our control.
Right. So let me ask you this one question, right? I wanted to ask you about this as well. Is a couple of last year when Canada had this fire, and our whole of Jersey and a lot of states in the United States had that orange sky, right? And then there were cautions that came on the phone saying that stay indoors or limit your activity outside of your house.
Yeah.
That smoke you could literally smell burning.
Yep.
When you step outside the house, right? Would we have been staying inside the house? Would we have done anything different? It lasted for almost 5-6 days.
Yeah. So the atmospheric conditions.
How dangerous is that to breathe?
I mean, smoke is never good to breathe, no matter what. Unfortunately, there's very little we could do about it because the atmospheric conditions were just the way they were. The weather patterns were at that moment in time. The smoke would hang low. Essentially, that's what it did. What happens is when smoke cools off too quickly, it stays low.
Okay.
All right. And whatever weather patterns we were having at that moment in time, the smoke was hanging low and traveling a great distance. And obviously there were very large fires. So you have those combination of those things. And so I think by the time it got from Canada to here,
it could have gotten a little bit milder.
Yeah, I don't think you're in danger of everybody, getting throat cancer or anything like that. But, it's not the greatest thing for you, but I don't think it was the end of the world either type deal.
Gotcha. As a firefighter, my last question, what bothers you when people don't understand, when you tell them some instructions? Is there anything in particular that you always keeps bugging you when people don't understand or don't listen? Or just don't do something that it's so obvious I'm telling you?
Yeah, so I guess there comes a time when every firefighter is we go to a lot of false alarms, right?
Okay.
We go to a lot of our calls are, and this is everywhere, nationwide. It doesn't matter, career, volunteer, busy department. where you're going to a lot of calls that are non-urgent or non-emergency. Now, we don't know that when we're being dispatched,
Okay.
but people are calling in stuff that really is not an actual emergency,
Okay.
and maybe making it seem like it actually is, and then we get there and we're like, oh, this is kind of what you called for us. So I guess that kind of irks a lot of firefighters, and certainly it does me too.
Okay.
We don't mind going to emergencies, we don't mind helping people, but sometimes it's like, come on, really, you called in this.
We could be going to somewhere which is actually needed,
Yeah,
but now that we are here, we can't be there.
but we hear both sides, right? Because there are some people who should have called us, and they're like, oh, well, we waited 30 minutes or an hour, and it's like, are you guys crazy? You should have called us
right away.
right away.
Right.
So it's kind of a double-edged sword, because you don't want to tell people not to call you, because then people are not calling when they actually should.
Right.
And then there are people who are calling when they should not be calling.
No, and we are certainly not preaching that. We're actually telling you to take the best judgment call and then do it,
What I always tell people is, if you're not sure, call us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Exactly.
It's always better to be safe than sorry.
100%.
So, if you're not sure, call us. It is what it is, right? It's what we signed up for. So,
no, absolutely. I think that's all I had for today's episode, and thank you so much, Chief. A lot of good learnings that I had, and I would like to see how this goes in the future, and have you more onboarded, sort of do more sessions where we can talk about your experiences or educating people via this podcast. And again, thank you for the opportunity, for saying yes.
yeah, thank you for having me.
No, absolutely. I'm excited to put this out and see how people enjoy it. We've been trying a few things here and there, but how was your experience?
Good.
You like it? The flow?
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a problem speaking in front of people. I guess kind of being the chief, I kind of have
I
to
could see that.
I have to kind of talk with people in front, so it's not that big of a deal to me.
Right. No, absolutely. So with that being said, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Do like, share, and subscribe. Let us know in the comments what are some of the things that you learned that you did not know before you heard this episode, right? Especially the back of the hand thing. I had no idea about that one. I thought this was the best way to tap head, but this is like something new I learned today. So thank you so much, and again, I'll see you guys in the next episode. So this is me, your host Halak, signing off. See you in the next episode. Have a good one.